Alright, what is good YouTube? In this video I'm going to explain to you a concept that is ultimately, I think, the most fundamental concept you need to know when you actually want to grow your school. It's kind of related to a little bit of mindset and to actually what you need to do in order to get to 6 figures, 7 figures, or basically achieve any goal with your dojo. I've recorded a clip about this on my computer. Let's cut the fluff and let's straight up cut into it. I'll see you in there.
Alright, so hey everyone, and welcome to the video in which I'm gonna explain to you probably the most important concept you ever need to know when you grow your school. Truth be told, I don't have any real script right now for this video, but I basically had just an idea about just doing a video where I kind of rant about a concept that, like, if you don't know about this, as the title says, you'll never reach 7 figures, and you probably never even reach 6 figures, right? So basically, you're currently here at point A, right? And your goal is obviously point B. And you obviously know, right, in order to bridge this gap, you have to get from point A to point B, right? And how you do this? Well, everyone knows what the right actions are, right? You probably know, right, I need to do marketing for my school, I need to provide good classes, right? Like, there are just things you need to do in order to get from, let's say you're here at, like 5K per month, and you want to get to those, I don't know, say you want to get to those juicy, let's say 20K per month, right? So you obviously know, 2K, that's 20K. So you obviously know, alright, to get from 5K to 20K per month, you know theoretically what you need to do, like what actions you need to take, right? But then when you wake up on a daily basis, it's just like, well, why don't you just take these actions, right? Like, why don't you just wake up and always take the right actions to get from point A to point B? Because let's say when you always take the right actions over a long enough period of time, you'll get to point B, right? And this may take you, I don't know, let's say this is going to take you like, I don't know, 1.5 years or so. Sorry for my awful drawing here, but let's say when every day you wake up, you take the right actions to get from point A to point B, you would be there in 1.5 years, right? Now the question then becomes to, why don't you wake up and take the right actions every single day? Obviously, before I continue, you don't know this is going to take you 1.5 years, but let's assume it takes you 1.5 years, right? And you don't know this obviously when you're at point A that it's going to take you 1.5 years to get to point B, but you can kind of do the math and kind of figure out it would take you roughly that long. Truth be told though, if I were in your position, I wouldn't put any time frames onto achieving a goal. So if I were at point A right now and I want to get to point B, at least this is how I do this personally, I never put a timestamp on it because, well, I don't know how long this is going to take. Like, this is kind of up to the universe to decide. I can just wake up every single day and give it my best, right? Anyways, long story short, let's say you wake up every single day, it would take you 1.5 years. And we need the time frame here. I'm going to explain to you why in just a second. Anyways, let's continue. So, where were we? Yeah, 1.5 years. And basically, for you, it's probably going to take you more like 2 or 3 years. And you're asking yourself, well, why? Maybe it's even going to take you 5 years or 10 years to get from 5 to 20K per month. Or maybe you're never ever going to reach 20K per month of your school because you just quit. And you ask yourself, why? Like, why does it take me so long? By the way, when I say 1.5 years, what I mean with that is I also include, like, alright, maybe you take like 2 or 3 weeks off here and there to go for a holiday, right? I'm not saying you have to work like 7 days a week on your school, 12 hours a day. I'm just saying, assuming you're working, like 5 to 6 days a week on your, for every day for like 8 hours on your school, maybe 5 days a week for 8 to 10 to 12 hours on your school, right? You basically know the drill, you know what you need to do. I don't need to tell you about the technical perspective here, right? But again, let's say you do this. So then it becomes, alright, then it would take you 1.5 years to get to from 5K per month to 20K per month, right? I think until now it's pretty understandable. Well, but what happens to you is you wake up and you want to get to point B, right? And instead of just going to point B like this, you're probably waking up, and instead of, again, going in this direction, you probably just go in this direction. And then you wake up the next day, you go in this direction, you go a little bit here, you go a little bit there, then you go a little bit up there, then you go down here again, then you go get close to your goal again, but then you get too close, you go back again, you get a little bit closer, you go back here, you go back there, bam, 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 bam. And before you know it, your life looks like this. Instead of it just looking like this, obviously it's not a straight line, but in an ideal case, it should look similar to this, like this. Then maybe make a little bit of more progress here, make a little bit of a regression here, make more progress towards your goal. You have a down here, you make more progress again, you kind of regress a bit, but then you make more progress again, right? And then you kind of slowly achieve your goal, you make a little bit of back progress here, you get closer to your goal again, and eventually you'll have achieved your goal, right? And you're obviously super happy over here, right? I don't know what, if that should be a smiley face or something like that. I don't know what I wanted to draw there. Let's draw this properly. Obviously, when you've achieved your goal, you're super happy, right? But instead of it looking like similar to this one right here, but you make a little bit of back progress, but you achieve your goal and you're super happy, it looks rather for you similar to this, right? It just looks completely random. And by the way, that's when you become super unhappy because you just don't achieve your goal, right? And the question is, well, why does it look like this? Why doesn't it look like you're straight up going to point B? Well, it's most likely because you're not taking the right actions. Like we know in the universe, there's just cause and effect, right? And basically, in order to get to point B, this is an effect, and you need to put the right causes into place in order to get to point B. It's super simple to understand, right? Hard to execute, quote unquote hard. But basically, it's because the version that you're at when you're at point A, it wants to survive. Like when you're here, right? You obviously have a state of self, right? Like you've probably been alive for maybe you're 50 years old, maybe you're only 30 years old, whatever it is, right? But you've been alive for quite some time already. In order to grow into a person who can make 20k per month, you kind of have to kill your current self psychologically and grow into that new self, right? And this is gonna require pain. So you kind of, because at the end of the day, when you want to get to 20k per month, like you have your current self here, obviously, and I'm not even, let me actually attempt drawing a human being. To put them ahead. Yeah, this looks completely awful. We're gonna redo that. I hope you guys can bear with me and can forgive me for my awful drawings. As you know, I was probably really good when I was in art school when I was in art class in school, not art school, what the fuck. Yeah, anyways, so you have a persona, obviously, when you're at point A, right? And that person obviously is, let's see if we can draw this, super unhappy because they're not at point B, right? And obviously, you know that if you were at, let's redraw this. If you were, it's kind of funny, I spent like half of the video just drawing. Let me make this better. Yeah, let's just take it, you get the point. And you obviously know that if you were at point B, you would be super happy, right? Now, when you're right here, when you're this person, when you're person A, you don't stand a chance to make 20k per month, because if you would have already done it, right? So you kind of know, all right, I need to grow like person A and person B, like this person and this person. These two are completely two different human beings, right? And so basically you have to, this version right here has to die psychologically. Obviously you still need your flesh and your body in order to grow into the new version, right? And this person here kind of has to come to fruition, so to speak, right? So this person needs to be alive. This person basically needs to be psychologically, obviously, dead. Now, in order to do that, you obviously have to go through pain. And why do you have to go through pain? Well, like every biological organism, your current self also just wants to survive, right? And when you basically take the right actions in order to get to point B, your current self basically dies. And because, again, as I've said, this person has to die, this person has to live, right? So when you take the right actions to get to point B, your current self is obviously slowly starting to die, right? Because it knows, all right, we're now going to grow into a new person. So the closer to you basically get to your goal, the harder it's gonna be. Like the closer you get to this point here, to actually achieving your goal, right? Like this is when it's gonna get really, really nasty in terms of being painful psychologically. By the way, with pain, I always just mean that it's painful psychologically. Like the closer you get to this point here, the more doubts you'll have, the more you'll feel like, nah, I should not work now. It doesn't matter if I work today or not, right? Like the closer you get to your goal, the harder it's actually going to be. And by the way, this is the best thing that can happen to you, because the closer because you just know, all right, when it's psychologically harder, I know my current self is dying and I'm growing close to my new self, right? Like my current self is dying, my new self is coming to fruition. So it's the best thing that can basically happen to you when it's painful. And the more painful it is, the closer you are to your goal, so to speak, right? And basically this is why most people never ever achieve their goal, because when it feels painful, so they make some progress, it's easy here, then it gets harder and harder, and they just be like, that's too hard, I'm gonna go backwards. And then Let's say it like this, right? If there's a fat person, I'm just gonna call him fat. Call me whatever, but according to societal standards, there's a person who's overweight, or let's call it fat, right? And they want to lose weight, right? And they want to get from point A, so their point A is fat and their point B is like in a good shape, right? Obviously, the closer they get to being in a good shape, because their current self has to date there as well, like the more painful it is going to become for them, right? Like the harder it is going to get. And let's say they're really getting into good shape, like they stick to their diet for, let's say, a couple of days or whatsoever, right? Let's say for 3 days. What do you think happens on day 4 when they kind of cheat? Do you think they have like one piece of chocolate and that's it, and then they're just going to continue the next day? Obviously not. What's rather going to happen is they have some good days, they make some good progress, and then they relapse. But they don't just relapse a little bit. What usually happens is they go like this. And you might think, this is an over exaggeration. No. They go completely backwards again. And because they won't just cheat for one day, they'll cheat another day because they wake up the next day and then it's like, fuck, I fucked up my diet yesterday. Well, it doesn't matter if I fuck it up today again. And sooner enough, they're down in this downward spiral, right? Because they didn't just fail once, they didn't fail basically all the time, over and over again. I'm not saying that it's impossible to break this loop, because the 100% is, because if we really break this down, if we see this objectively, if this fat person cheated on their diet once a bit, well, objectively, they just need to keep going, and they just need to realize, yeah, I failed once, but it's just resistance. I gave into resistance. Now I need to work again, right? And they just have to realize that now resistance is going to get really strong for them, because like their current self had basically realized that there's a way it can come to fruition, right? Because you have to remember, your current self, it is you. Like, it is, and I'm not going to be a motivational speaker here, but it's just you against you, right? When you want to achieve your goal. Yeah, but anyways, like, it's just what I've, and it's also my personal, like when you fall off once a bit, you just completely fall off again. So obviously you have to kind of break that pattern. And like, again, it's when you're achieving your goal, right? What you have to remember, it's not going to be, again, this straightforward line here, right? It's more going to be looking like this, like you have some ups and you have some downs, you regress, you make progress, you have some ups, you have some downs, you regress, you get closer, you make some backwards progress, you get forward, you regress a bit, but eventually you'll achieve your goal, right? And if you follow this line, you would have achieved your goal in 1.5 years. Obviously, if you are like a robot, you could maybe achieve your goal in like 1 year and 3 months, right? So if you would stick to this line, you could theoretically make it in like one year and 3 months, and like 15 months. It's theoretically, right? I'm not saying that this is gonna happen. And but obviously we're human beings, like we're still going to regress here and there. But if you overcome resistance like 90% of the time, I think you should be good. And again, this is one of, like, this concept has changed my life completely in the past, to be honest. And I've used this concept time and time over again to achieve multiple goals in my life. And that's everything for this video. If you want more students for your school, check out the first link in the description, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.